It seems like time to turn up. Hi, how are you? Good evening. Welcome to episode 8. I think I've done the maths right. But for lots of us, we're still at that situation where we're not sure what day of the week it is. It is episode 8 of Shelf Analysis here in the Ricochet Book Club, coming to you live from my sitting room. How are you? How are you? It's a genuine question. How are you feeling? I was at that stage whereby you can see off over in that direction the big window in the room and the blinds. I'm almost at the point where I can leave them open and not have the light on above my head. And I love when the days get slightly longer. I think particularly at the moment, it's doing a lot for me to have slightly longer evenings. So maybe not yet. Maybe at some stage next week we can do this entirely in natural light. I was thinking about doing it in the back garden one of the days. Let's face it, we're going to have plenty of these to do. Thank you to everybody who's been in contact about the show at various points as well. I mentioned on Twitter, I need to read this verbatim earlier, that my nonsense chat show was coming up in a little while here. And thank you to Anna Brown. Anna tweeted me and she said, "It's definitely not nonsense. I'm at home with 5 kids and a husband who's self-employed. I spend most of my day doing homework, helping out and cleaning. Laundry never ends. This has been a bright spot. It's half an hour apiece with discussions and recommendations on something I love." You sound as if you feel very seriously about that. Very much, Anna. Cheers, fair play. A couple of things for you. I think I might have broken the logjam yesterday on the show. I was talking to you about having had problems reading over the last week or the last 10 days, and I'd tried a few different things and I'd ended up putting a bunch of books aside. Last night, if you look at the episode 7 with John Boyne, which you'll find in the announcements section here, or our friends on RTE Culture should have it up at this stage or the next day or so. I'd shown you 2 books that I thought might help, and one of them was the new Diary of a Bookseller book, the Sean Bethel's new one, the second one, the one that came out last year. I went to bed, I read 45 pages of it last night and laughed through every single page of it. It felt very good. Sean, if you get to see any of these at any point, thank you so much, my friend. You have done me a great service, and I will come see you in Wigtown, as I promised to do on a number of occasions. Also worth a mention, I haven't done on any of these programs yet, is the sister group to the Ricochet Book Club. It's called Culture Shack. And over there, we talk about everything that's culture and pop culture related that isn't books. So everything from cinema to theatre to dance to opera to poetry to anything that you won't find within the book club here. And the interesting thing about that group at the moment is there's a lot of stuff being put up in it that are live performance things that obviously can't go ahead at the moment. So you've got a lot of theatre companies, theatres around the world, opera companies. They're not doing anything. So what they're doing is they are putting up some of their back catalogue free of charge for people to watch. For instance, tonight, in fact, I think it started about an hour ago, the National Theatre in London on their NT Live Delio, that's the technical term for it. If you look at their YouTube page, look up National Theatre, it's the National Theatre in London. They put up One Man, Two Governors, which firstly, it has James Corden in it. Stop. Me and Liz saw James Corden in One Man, Two Governors. We were on honeymoon. It was 2012 in New York on Broadway. It is the funniest night I've ever spent in a theatre anywhere. It's a beautiful piece of theatre. It's well worth your time. I'm hoping it transfers to when we're going to project it on a big screen here at some stage, because it's for the next 7 days. You can watch it and watch it for free. National Theatre's YouTube page. But there's a load of that happening in Culture Shack. So again, if you're in Facebook, just stick in Culture Shack. Join us up. You'll find us there. And even let us know what you're doing with regards to the rest of your cultural life that isn't necessarily connected to books. Briefly, the book I want to recommend for you today might help. A lot of people talking about shorter books maybe helping them in times like this. I'm astonished I haven't mentioned this yet. This is the new Emer McBride, very recently out. It's called Strange Hotel. New Emer McBride, Strange Hotel, only about yay big. You have one character in it. She spends the vast majority of the book moving from hotel room to hotel room to hotel room. It might feel eerily important at the moment, and it might feel, for those of us who are stuck at home all day, every day, maybe exactly the sort of read you need. I enjoyed it immensely. I went through it in a couple of nights. It's Strange Hotel. It's a new book by Emer McBride as well. Now, we have a problem. The problem occurs mainly because, let me show you first of all an image that was sent to me. I think I can put this on the full screen. Can I? I can. Yeah, okay. So this is Karina, our houseplant's friends. And as you can see, she sent this to me with an emoji. She seems less than happy about the lack of social distancing going on amongst her friends at the moment. In fact, I think she thinks they're all there for a drink, which is it's not the sort of thing we should be doing, whether we be man, woman, child, houseplant, or anything at the moment. So let's find out what Karina, the houseplant, is reading at the moment. Karina, where are you? Hi, Karina. Oh, okay. How are you feeling tonight? Good. Don't read angry. Don't read angry, Karina. Okay. Just, we'll talk afterwards, okay? Just take it nice and easy. Okay? Sure? Where do you even get a book like that? Where? Thank you, Karina. Okay. Goodbye. Our guest on the show tonight is we've done a few different things. We've done them in a few different places. We have gone to a few different locations. We have been to the UK this week. We went to talk to Damien Barr in Brighton. This is one of the ones that I wanted to line up for quite some time, mainly because when I met our author tonight for the first time, I had already read her stuff. I had adored her most recent novel. And then we met down in Waterford. I think this year should remind me of it. We met and we kind of got on like a house on fire, and as a result of which we kind of have adopted each other pretty much. So we're going to Belfast. I'm going to press this button here, and hopefully, if this gives me a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which it will, I think. Hello, Jan Carson in Belfast. How are you?
Hi. It's lovely to see you.
And you. Lovely to see you in some form of reality that isn't a Twitter avatar for once.
Yeah, I've just realised I've got a pineapple on one side of my head. I didn't notice that until I looked tonight. Whoa.
It's best to not think about it and let's just move on, because it'll add to the atmosphere of, huh?
Yeah.
Tell me, first question to everybody when they're coming on the show is you and the real world and the last couple of weeks and where you are and how you've been dealing with all of this that's going on all around us.
Well, I live in a little terraced house, so I'm in East Belfast, shacked up by myself, although I don't feel like I am because I've got quite noisy dogs with my neighbour next door. I kind of call them the hounds of the Baskervilles when they go off. So if you hear something barking, that's my neighbour's dogs. Yeah, I guess it's strange for, in some ways it doesn't feel much different to normal life because I do spend a lot of time by myself anyway. But I think you very quickly begin to realize that the choice is the different thing, that it's okay to choose to go on a residency and stay in a field by yourself in a cabin for a month and not see anyone. This is different. This feels kind of restrictive. So a bit like yourself, I've been struggling to read, struggling to concentrate on writing, yeah, struggling to concentrate on anything really.
Which to me is astonishing because of the conversations we've had, you not only obviously are writing all the time, you not only have an actual real job as a community arts facilitator, you read voraciously, possibly more than any other human being I know, on top of all of that. And that's on top of the likes of the postcard stories. So how has this affected your work, both in terms of your writing and then your actual kind of real job in the real world?
Well, I guess I think I was thinking about this today. I've been editing a book for the last, like, since it started, and the edits I actually didn't find too bad because there's a structure to those, and it felt like I wasn't having to exercise my imagination. I began at the start of the week to try and work on a short story, and that's been really difficult. The trying to exercise, like, the act of imagining is a hopeful act because you're stepping out of your own experience into someone else's, and I think at the minute everyone's hope is a little bit thin, so I find that hard, though I've been pushing through. I've Instead of I would usually do about 1,000 words a day and I'm managing 300 on a good day at the minute. I have, though, you mentioned I've been doing this project with Postcard Stories, so I've been writing postcard stories for years and years and years, and since this started, I've started writing them exclusively to older people who are in isolation. I'm getting kids, friends of mine who have small children, to illustrate them for me. So that has been such a joy.
Okay, let's scroll back here because I know what postcard stories are, and you do just maybe briefly explain to us the concept of how that works.
So a postcard story is literally what it says in the tin. It's a tiny little piece of microfiction that fits on the back of a postcard with my very, very small scrolled up handwriting.
on it, which is fine. Okay, let's
Everyone's
try
handwritten
that.
is
That's
nice
much
things.
better. That's fine. There we go. So that one there. And yeah, you sent that on a lovely postcard as well.
Yeah, yeah. Saw that postcard and thought of you, Rick.
And how does that work? Explain that to me then. So you just write stories that are they're these tiny little unique, perfectly put together stories.
Yeah, and I think I've been trying at the minute to write kind of optimistic, hope-filled ones, but ones that do reference claustrophobia and using your imagination to step outside the claustrophobia. And then the kiddos have been illustrating them and sending their little illustrations in. So for me, I started out to try and help other people, but actually opening your inbox every day and having this like class drawing quite often with gallery notes on how to explain the drawing from a 4-year-old has been great.
Because
Do
you've
we
sent me
have
one of
one?
these here. Yeah, I'm going to show this one here, and actually maybe I'm going to put that up as a bigger illustration. I'm going to take me out of here for a minute. So explain to us maybe what this is and where this came from.
So this is a fantastic piece of work by Mavis, who is 4.5, and it's a story I wrote about the birds because I think if you're listening at the minute, the birds seem to be louder than ever. And in this particular story, there's a bit of a coup going on where the birds are taking this opportunity to take over. I've definitely noticed that the birds in the park where I walk every day have got cockier and cockier. I was chased by a swan this afternoon. So this is Mavis's interpretation of it. And if you look very, very closely down that green rectangle in the bottom, which is a very Irish flag element going on there, but it's a little mouse in the corner as well. So she sent me her gallery notes in a video explaining what was going on in her picture.
It's just absolutely fantastic. And I've got a cover here as well. So is that going to be from then the upcoming collection? Explain to
Yeah,
me about
so
the cover that you've sent me too.
I've got a new collection of postcard stories coming out from the Emma Press in July. Now these won't be the ones from this particular setup. These are from the last few years, but hopefully, if all things go well and the printers are still printing, this should be out in July time, with lovely illustrations by Ben.
I would like to think the printers are very much still going to be printing. Hang on, I'm going to pull you slightly out there and move you over to the left and the right. This is, again, the whole thing that comes from doing live television and things. So I can put us back on the right-hand side of where we need to be here. So explain to me then the books that you've chosen for us tonight. I've asked everybody to pick kind of 3-ish books just that you think either people should be reading at the moment or ones that you love yourself or stuff that maybe, I don't know, will inspire people to read. So what have you got?
Yes, right. So I picked 3. I'm going to do this one first because I've been super clever. So I wanted to pick, I've been really enjoying books where I kind of get to escape for a while. And those books where you want the whole world to go away because you can't put them down. And my favorite one of these that I've discovered recently, old book, but is this one, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Now, as you can possibly see, it's not the real copy. I've done my own fantastic illustration here. Bit of a plot spoiler. I've lent my copy to someone else, but Rebecca is such a good read. If you want to escape for a while, read it, and then watch the movie as well. So it's like a two-hander. You can do the book and the movie. If I do this, this is like children's TV now. And behind it.
I know. Now, first of all, before you do that, can we address the nature of the plot spoiler you've just done for Rebecca within the picture that you've done there? Now, I accept that Rebecca has been in for many, many decades, but it's only a minor.
It's an illustration of when the theme park goes on fire in
it is
towards the beginning.
Yeah, it happens in the first few pages of the theme park fire, and then that's obviously everything comes from that. Go second book. Okay, what have you got there?
Second book. I read this last week. It's funny. You can hardly work out which way to move your hands. This is by, there we go, Marianne Lee. It's called The Quiet Tide. It's just, or A Quiet Tide. It's just out this week from New Island. I couldn't put this down. It's fantastic. So it's a historical fiction novel. It's based on a real woman called Ellen Hutchins, who lived down around Bantry Bay, and she was one of the first botanists, and especially one of the first female botanists. Now that doesn't sound very interesting. As you know, I don't like nature very much, so I was a bit reluctant to dive into this. It's just the most gorgeous story, and it's about her life and her struggles and so many small disappointments, but it's so beautifully written. I couldn't put it down, and it made me forget everything else that was going on around me for a while.
It is quite substantially sized. Is that going to
It's
be a problem for people at the moment?
no, it's just got big prints.
Big Prince, fine.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's all good. I have a twofold question for you off the back of that. One of which is, why don't you like nature? The second of which then is, why then are you currently reading Walden by Henry David Thoreau?
I just I like to challenge myself, Rick. I don't not like nature. I like people in nature. I'm not great with long descriptions of plants and trees and things like that. I like it when it's a person's relation to the natural world. I'm not loving Walden. I think it might be because I think Thoreau's a bit condescending and smug. It's sort of like, I have nailed this whole nature thing. Why have you not got it? But maybe that's just me.
No, I think there's always an element of it. I've read Walden once, and it was about 3 years ago, and we were away on holidays, and we'd rented a house somewhere. So it was one of those holidays where you bring a big stack of books, and you sit around all day, read, do nothing, and then at a certain point in the day, you crack open the first bottle of wine, and then everything goes downhill from there. But I remember thinking of him, well, isn't it lovely for you to have friends who'll give you
Yes,
this place by the pond, and you can afford to go off now and do all this by yourself and not have to work for a little while? Isn't that handy? It was just that was the voice in my head while I was reading the first
yes.
part of it. I enjoyed it probably more than you did, and I was interested to maybe get it over with is the wrong word. I think getting over with Walton's the wrong word.
I've only got
Well,
this much left to read.
there's a theme park fire at the
Is
end.
there?
Um, no. I should just really briefly. I'm conscious that because your illustration was so beautiful, we skipped over Rebecca, and potentially, if people want to dive into Daphne du Maurier, it's a nice gateway place to go in. But
Yeah.
then there's a whole other bunch of things that you can find of hers that if you like the worlds that she conjures and creates in that, then there's a lot more to be had from her.
And it's that kind of spooky, creepy, slightly Shirley Jackson-y, Agatha Christie. See what I'm doing here? There's a link coming up.
Yeah.
Um, just there's a darkness to it that I think is fantastic. And I don't know what's wrong with me, but I do really like those kind of slightly twisted, dark writers.
You're also the second person over the course of this series so far who's mentioned Shirley Jackson without actually picking a Shirley Jackson book. And Liz is, I mean, as I am, but she was the one. She was my gateway drug into Shirley Jackson books. She deserves, I think, a huge mention as well. If
Okay,
people
well,
have
if you want
never
to get
gotten into her.
gateway to Shirley Jackson is there's a collection that came out a few years ago. I think it's called Dark Tales or something with dark in the title, and it's an anthology of some of her kind of dark, twisty short stories. It's a really good gateway. Like it'll give you 20 really good short stories, and if you like those, dive in. You'll like the rest of them. It's got a black cat on the cover
And
of
again,
it.
it is like the movie broadcast news. I can glance here to my right, and Liz says it is Dark Tales. It's mad. So apparently it is Dark Tales. You nailed it. You got it right. Your third book tonight. What have you chosen? Seamlessly.
Seamlessly, didn't see this one coming at all. Have to put in some shock horror.
Okay.
I picked. This is weird because I'm actually just finished the ABC murder. This is number 18. But actually, when I was thinking about it, this is quite a good gateway to Agatha Christie if you've not read any before. It's a very good example of her genre. It's got Poirot in it. It's a classic Poirot. It's quite twisty. You won't see the twist coming. So if you haven't read any Agatha Christie before, this is actually quite a good one to go in with. It's not my favorite by any means, but it's a good starter drug.
What is your favorite?
I really like the Murder Character from Side to Side, just because it was one of the first ones I read, and also And Then There Were None, which is quite an early one as well. But I like some of the really kind of campy ones as well. Like I've read a few recently. Why Didn't They Ask Evans? Which is just, it could be a James and Lister book, but it's funny. It's that very kind of big country house tongue in cheek kind of thing that I just think is hilarious as well.
And I think I felt that obviously, whilst not related to Agatha Christie formally in any way, I don't know if you saw Knives Out, the movie last
That's
year
a
with,
great movie.
Daniel Craig playing the Poirot-esque Benoit Blanc, the detective character. And if in any way I think you like the setup of those types of Agatha Christie stories, it's immense fun if you're into that.
I think as well, like I was thinking about this when I picked it. there's something there's a George Orwell essay called I think it's In Praise of a Good English Murder, and it talks about how this kind of ordered crime fiction that Christie and P.D. James and people like that write, it actually in times of chaos and catastrophe like this, they're very reassuring because things happen logically and the bad guys get caught and there's justice, and it's not like an episode of these serial killer things on TV where people are just being killed because there's evil in the world. There is always order in a Christie, and I think I find them deeply reassuring at the minute because of that.
Yeah, I can understand that completely. They're great selections. We will take those. We will put them up in comments below this as well, in case people have missed any of the titles as well. Before I let you go, I do have to mention, it's okay. You can sit back for this because this is my bit. This is where I can do this. The Fire Starters was how I got into your work in the first place. And I got into it in the way I got into so many books. You're actually physically sitting back, which is really impressive. This is I just meant metaphorically, but you can physically sit back as well. That's fine. I read the first page and a half of the Fire Starters, which if people in any way have any doubt as to whether or not they're going to be into the story that you've written about two parents, about their unusual children, about a modern day situation, about it happening during marching season in East Belfast, and then it becoming this wonderful thing of magical realism, which it does. Read the first 2 pages, and they are as beautifully put together as any 2 pages in any book that I've read in years. You know full well that I have spent a lot of time pressing this book into the hands of people because I think it utterly deserves it. Maybe just very briefly, for people who have no sense of what it's about, and I've done a terrible job of explaining what the book is about, just explain to us really briefly what happens.
Well, it's basically about this theme park that catches fire.
There's
No,
only ever one story in fiction, isn't there? And it's that story.
no, it's about two fathers, Jonathan and Sammy. Sammy has left the paramilitaries when he becomes a father to become a good father, and is horrified when his son Mark has got swept up in the same movement that he tried to escape from. And then on the other side of it, the more magic realist kind of side of it, it is about Jonathan, who's a young GP who gets called out on a house call and is seduced by a siren and left 9 months later with a little baby called Sophie, who he's not sure if she's going to be a siren or not. And all of this goes on against the backdrop of a particularly violent summer in Belfast, where there's a lot of riots and sectarian violence. And it's basically it's an exploration of whether parents are responsible for what their children say and do or not.
I've got a couple of comments in here. Jackie says, I must bump a quiet tide up the pile. Fair enough.
Yay!
Hello to Keelan Hughes. Hi, Keelan
Oh,
is
is
watching
Kaylin on
tonight.
there?
She is watching
I
somewhere,
really
presumably in Holland. Hi.
Can I just say, Rick, I really wanted to plug Kaylin's book as well, the new one, Wild Laughter. It's honestly one of the best things I've read in about 6 months. It's just not quite out yet, but put that at the back of your mind because it is coming out in the summertime, and it's one of the funniest, darkest, cleverest things I've read in a very long time. And there are no theme park fires in it.
No, I'm holding my fire on it as well because again, I read it earlier in the year and I'm fully aware that it's coming out. And I loved Orchid and the Wasp, and she had a very high bar to aim for this one, and she's more than exceeded that. And who knows, you may find her on a future episode of this program. Who knows? Are we allowed to mention? Because I think the last time we had a conversation in the real world, you were talking about an abandoned caravan park. I don't want to say it out loud because obviously could be a thing. Is that still happening?
Well, Abandoned Caravan Park got put to the side, and I was going to write a book about vampires in an abandoned caravan park.
I didn't want to say the V word, but yeah, okay, yeah.
It's still at the back of my mind. Instead, I just finished last week. I wrote a young adult novel about a little boy who is haunting a furniture showroom. So it's just gone off to my agent at the start of the week, and it's very much based on my grandfather had a furniture showroom that we all grew up in, and it was just full of these crazy stories about the people who worked there. And he told us all there was a little monkey that lived in the furniture showroom, and we spent years trying to find it and playing huge games of hide and seek. And I've always wanted to write something about it. So it's a young adult novel about a little boy called Ben who lives in the furniture showroom, and there's other ghosts who are his friends, and it's quite dark.
I love this. Thank you, Chandrika has just said, I was super lucky to find one of Jan's Agatha Christie microfiction fanfics scribbled into a book in the Duncairn in Belfast. It was so tiny and magical and great.
Hi, Chandraka. Yeah, I've been writing little tiny. I didn't actually say this. I'm reading every Agatha Christie novel in order this year. There's 66 in total because this is the 100th anniversary of her first publication. And when I finish each one, I write a little story in the cover based on the novel, and I hide them places. So Chandraka found the one in the Duncairn.
I have to finish here because our time is up. However, I'm conscious that you're one of the most intensely creative people I have ever met. I'm glad to see that that is only just changing moderately at the moment, and that you're still going at 80% capacity, which is wonderful. People can follow you on social media as well because you're really good at the old socials, whether
Oh,
it be
yes.
Instagram or Twitter. So follow you on Twitter in particular.
Twitter is Jan Carson 7080. And if you are on Instagram, please follow the little postcard stories the kids are doing. It's Jan's Postcard Stories on Instagram. And if you're on there, give the kiddos a shout out because they are so delighted. Like, I'm getting all these messages from mums who are stressed out at home saying, my kids are just delighted because people are loving their artwork. So please do that for me.
Jan Carson in Belfast, thank you so much for taking a half hour to talk to us, and stay safe, okay?
Goodbye.
Thanks, Jan. See ya. Okay, that's the end of that for us and for now and for episode. What are we? Episode, I need to look up again. Episode 8 of Shelf Analysis. Next week, we have episodes on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. They are live at 8 p.m. as per usual. If you want to catch some of these, and maybe potentially you've got friends, you've got family who aren't in the Ricochet Book Club, we are, of course, being put out now on RTE Culture a couple of days later. So you can find us on RTE Culture. Most of them are up there. Check it out. Monday night, live at 8 o'clock. We're going to New York City, and I'll talk to you then. See you.